Well, first of all, can I thank the Mayor for coming here and the elected representatives, indeed everybody. Can I thank George personally for inviting me to lead this conversation. And I think the sort of title in itself, Addiction, an Honest Conversation, says very much about the three panellists, because I think even the use of the word addiction, it sometimes can be judgmental. And I also think of people like these three particular men who have talked about it in the open very publicly, and indeed have pledged themselves and have worked to try and use their example and how they've found a pathway out of it to encourage other people to do likewise. So I just want to introduce the panel. We start off with Oisin McConville. Oisin's from across McLean. I think it's well known that there's no honour in the field of Gaelic football that Oisin hasn't received. County championships, I think it's 16. I think it's 10 Ulster championships at club level, 6 All-Irelands. He has won the Ulster title 7 times at county level, the All-Ireland in 2002, and an All-Star on 2 occasions. So I think anybody knows anything about any sport, that array behind your name is some feat. So I'd like to welcome Oisin here to Derry in particular tonight. On Oisin's right is Sean Friars. Sean is a Derry man from Gallia, someone that we would all know, certainly people of my generation, because we can all remember the hopes and aspirations we had when was the NFL Harpsman went to Liverpool at a very young age with the potential to become, to fulfil the potential that he had. He then went to Ipswich, I think to Carlisle, and then returned back to play in the north for Portadown and for Derry. Ironically, won an FAI Cup medal the same year as Oisin won an All-Ireland medal in 2002. He went on to coach, and he's also went on to talk about his experience and work with people with similar experiences in a pathway out, and he was capped at international level under 21. So I'd like to welcome Sean here as well. In reading up about Connor, I seen he was born in 1997, and when you see that, you sort of realise just how old you become. Oisin's putting his hand this forward, you can guess how I feel, but Connor's well known in this city. He was with Derry City underage for 2 years, and then played in the senior team for 4 years, and now currently plays for Cliftonville. We've just forgiven you for going to Cliftonville, but that's a conversation for another day. So again, I'd like people to appreciate Connor also is capped at international level at under 21. So I'd just like to welcome Connor here tonight. I've given a short bio just of who you are in terms of who you play, but I'd just like to begin this conversation by allowing you just a couple of minutes, and we'll start with Oisin, as obviously our travelling guest, just to talk about the importance of football in your life and what it meant to you growing up, and what it meant in Armagh and Cross McLean in particular, because I know with that affinity with the club football.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the welcome. Thanks for the kind words. I can't believe he was born in 1987. Jesus Christ, that's a bad start. But when I was growing up in a small village in South Armagh, I was born in 1975. I know you won't believe that, Conor, but I was. And when I was growing up, Cross McLean was dominated by the Troubles. It was bandit country. It was shootings, bombings, killings were commonplace day in, day out. When I walked to school, when I walked to the football pitch, you were always greeted by a soldier or a policeman, and I suppose for many people, when they think about that, and even when I think about that today, and I think about my young kids, if they had to go through that, I wouldn't see that as normal, but at the time I seen that as quite the norm. In the place I grew up in, there was no other sport other than Gaelic football. There was no hurling, there was no soccer, there was no rugby, there was no gym, there was no swimming pool. The only thing we had was one massive football pitch in the middle of the town, and that's where I spent the majority of my time growing up. I started playing football at 3 and 4 years of age. I don't have a lot of recollection of a lot of what happened early on in my life. But I remember at 4 and 5 years of age just saying to myself, I want to be the best Gaelic footballer I could be. for a couple of different reasons. One of the reasons was that purely and simply I loved it. But another reason was that I thought it would protect me from what was going on around me. The troubles were something at the time which really scared me. Now, there's no way as a lad growing up across Crossmaglen that I would have turned around and said that to Amy, because it wasn't something you said. In the area that I grew up in, you were told to say nothing to nobody, and I suppose I took that very literally, in that if you ask, like if for example, if you were to ask my family what I was like growing up, they would say I was very, very, very uncomplicated, because I went to school because I had to, I went to mass because I had to, and I went to the football pitch because I loved it. And that was the way my life materialised. As I said, there wasn't a lot of other choices as far as sport was concerned. So I grew up playing Gaelic football, and at the time there was only an under-10 team. That was the youngest team that there was. I started running after the coach from about 4 years of age, trying to get a couple of minutes, and it took me 3 years, but at 7 I eventually got some sort of run, and that just, the love that I had for it up to then, it was just magnified, and I went on, as I said, the only thing in my head was to be the best Gaelic footballer I could be, and that was maintained until I was 14 years of age, and my life went in the same direction as far as sports was concerned, but off the field it went in a completely different direction. I know you probably want me to go on with that now, but that was how I grew up, and the things that even at 8 and 9 years of age, I would say I seen things that no kid should have seen in their lifetime, but I wasn't willing to share that with anybody. I wasn't willing to share my insecurities or any of the stuff that was going on in my head, because, as I say, I didn't want to be laughed at, I didn't want to be sneered at, I didn't want to see people to see it as a weakness, so that's why sport was the ultimate importance to me, and at times it sounds dramatic, but was the only thing that kept me alive, to be honest.
Very good. And Sean, yourself, obviously growing up in Kelly, Foyle Herbsman, what did football mean to you, and what was your hopes and aspirations as a young boy like Oisin?
Just before I answer that question, I just want to thank George as well too, and the staff for asking us here, because I feel that when we're up here to do this here, we're on our right path, so really appreciate these asking to do that. On the quay, it's a bit like Oisin, it's all you ever knew. I don't see kids playing football on the street no more. I actually seen when I was managing Stewart under 20s, I seen a goalkeeper kicking a ball against the wall and catching it. I was driving past and I thought, is this real? Because I hadn't seen it in that long. I'm not joking, you drove around the roundabout and come back and asked him, did he play for anyone? He says no, so I signed him. Right, he's playing Irish League now. I was just like, wow. Well, it just took me back to them days of playing. I loved it. That's all we ever done. In the summer holidays, you'd be up and away, you wouldn't have had your breakfast, and you'd been out playing until you could call for your dinner, and you didn't even want your dinner because it was a close enough game. It was like 56, 55. You'd been playing for like 8 hours. You know what I mean? And that was all we ever done in school, and it was the same. But like Oisin touched on there too, when I grew up, the troubles was, it was right in the thick of it, but again, it's one of them ones that's, it's what it was. It wasn't like really nothing new, but now obviously with my children, like I said, I would go, right, this isn't right. I remember getting blown out of bed with a Cosh gun on, and glass all over the place, getting up, climbing back on the bed. And it's like, it was, even though it's a bit dramatic, like it was still kind of what you get used to, but football for me, it's all ever was going to be was anything. I thought, I'm not bad at this. I wasn't great at school. So I thought, right, I'll have a go at this. And then from a young age, to be honest with you, from a young age, I wasn't really very much saying, because nowadays you can't travel across the water until 18. You can sign until you're 18. From 10, I was gone all summer. And now when I think back, my youngest girl's 8. Like, I was away for 8 weeks at 10 years of age, and I'm going, I don't even let my wee girl go to the shop.
And you say you're away, I was away to Liverpool at that stage?
No, this was at the Man United at the time.
Man United.
Aye. Yeah. And so I'd have been away for the whole summer.
And we'll not howl out against you either, but go ahead.
It's That's why I was grounded for that. And then obviously I was travelling around with different other clubs and looking at other clubs, and so I've been away for Easter, I've been away for the 2 weeks you're off, and then when I ended up signing for Liverpool, so from I was 12, I was getting out of school on a Thursday, flying over there, supposedly doing a Friday in school in the morning, but I wasn't, I was training. And then I would have flew back in Monday morning. So I'd only been in school Tuesday, Wednesday, properly here, and which was great for me. I loved it, like I say, because I just wanted to play football. And that carried on then until I was 15, and I went over early, without my exams and stuff. So for me, it was just, I'm going to be a professional footballer. And, you know, some great experience, like yourself. You know, sometimes we sit up, we do these talks and stuff, and people think, oh, Jesus, here we go. If he starts crying, they'll be crying, do you know what I mean? Because I do have the potential to cry, maybe, like, you know, so, but it's not all. You know, there's some amazing, met some amazing people, you know, on the journey, and you know, and I'm thankful for a lot of it, you know, and then on the other side of it, like I say, we'll get down to the questions, but I loved my upbringing, like they say.
And Connor, your experience, so you're obviously a lot younger than the other two, but just what was your experience growing up playing football? When did you sort of say, I want to be a professional footballer?
So some of the lads kind of knew at a young age I had the talent. Like, I think playing football at 4 or 5 years of age as well. At Comore, really thought I had a chance at it, because I mean, my dad, like, he played for Friars and Connor, and he told me, you have a good ability at that age and stuff, and I think, when you're good enough, I think even at that age you're kind of better than everybody else. And I played Comore right up there around 10 years of age or so, and I remember getting a chance to go over to Liverpool as well at that age. And he's saying getting out as well on a Thursday and flying over the trial for the weekend, and doing quite well for a couple of years. I was doing that. Now I never signed nothing with Lemons, but flying back and forth and training and getting over to Melwood and stuff, them experiences at them age were, you don't forget them, like. But I think at that age as well was kind of my first setback in my life as well, because around the age of 13, basically being told you weren't good enough to sign a scholarship at that age. Probably didn't know how to deal with it right. I think there was probably no support there either. Seeing Adam Mucker, Conor Quigley, he was at the same age, and he went over me a few times, and he got the contract, and I think there was no jealousy, but there was kind of, why did I not make it or whatever? What was I doing wrong? And I think that was kind of my first setback in my life. We made football and not dealing with it right, and I probably didn't play football after that for a couple of months, kind of give up and stuff. And I think, back then, having the support maybe around me at that time might have changed something in my life, I don't know. But, the good experiences of it all was getting a chance to even go over there, and, I think, you never, I try and look at the positives of it all as well, and, I thank everyone for the opportunity that I had back then. But no, I played for Oxford from maybe around 11 to 15, 16, and they were good years. Like, I was getting on grand and playing well and stuff. Had a couple of setbacks, like I say, with the Liverpool thing, but overall my childhood was very good. I won a lot of honours and stuff with Foyle Clubs, the Players of the Year, D&D and stuff, and there is a lot of opportunities there as well, even nowadays, like with the Foyle Cup, Mull Cup and stuff. You do miss all them tournaments, like, and they do build you up for your future life in football and all. But that's kind of my age up to 15, around that age, and then, like the lads say, after that kind of comes the kind of darkness of it all, then we things outside of football, like.
Okay, thank you, Connor. Actually, I'm just going to ask you this question. I can recall well when it became public, you talked about the public domain, and one of the things that actually surprised me is how young you were when you became involved in gambling, because from the distance when you heard it, you were nearly assuming it was nearly because you were so much the focus of attention, well known, one of the bright stars of Gaelic football, and you're saying, was that what the idea ended? But then when you read you were involved and addicted, I've heard a number of talks that you talked about it. So I'm just wondering, could you talk about your pathway and how you cope with it when you were playing as well as you were?
Well, I would say that I didn't gamble until I was 14 years of age, but I think I was on the way to addiction at 11. And the reason why I say that was that a lot of my insecurity started at 11 years of age. I was going from a primary school to a secondary school. And originally I was supposed to go to my own local primary school. And we'd ended up playing again a football match against the Abbey Primary School in Newry. And we beat them, and I'd done quite well in the game. And after the game they approached me and asked me would I like to go to the grammar school. And I remember when my mum and dad heard that, they were jumping up and down, but in the back of my head I was thinking that's fine to go there and play football, but academically, like, I'm really struggling, you know, at the level I'm at. There was an 11 plus at that time, so that shows you how far back we're going. But there was 3 grades. One was an A, one was an M, believe it or not, and one was a G. A G was a fail, an A was a pass, and an M was somewhere in the middle, and I was an M, which was somewhere in the middle. But again, my parents really wanted me to go to the Abbey Grammar School, and I did also. But at the back of my head, I had loads of insecurities about academically if it was going to be good enough. So I wouldn't have been in the school 3 or 4 weeks, and I realised I was really, really struggling. And I suppose from 11 years of age, at that stage, I was looking for something outside of school and outside of sport. I didn't know what that was going to be, but at 14 years of age, I walked into a bookmaker's, had my first bet on a horse. I had 50p each way on a horse in the Grand National. So when I walked into the bookies, if you can imagine, there probably was this many people in a small, very small bookies in Crossmaglen. So it was very acceptable for me to be in there. It was Grand National Day, everybody was in there. But there was something about it that I was attracted to. And anybody here who's been in a modern day bookmakers will realise it's pretty plush. There's widescreen TVs, tea, coffee, biscuits, nice comfortable seats. That wasn't the bookies I went into. There was a guy writing odds up on a blackboard, and there was a little portable TV stuck in the corner, black and white. A lot of the racing even was commentary. It wasn't, you didn't even see the pictures of it. But something about it, I was attracted to something about it. And I walked into that bookies again 2 weeks later. And there was 2 guys over here who were having similar bets to me, £2 a pound, whatever it was. And there was another guy over this side, and he was taking wads of money out of his pocket. And I always, for some reason, I always seen him as a winner. As far as I was concerned, in my head, he was always collecting. He always had chunks of money. And I'll come back to him maybe later on, but that was how I started. At 14 years of age, I might have gambled 3 or 4 times. 15 years of age, maybe once a month. 16 years of age, maybe twice, 3 times a month. 17 years of age, a couple of times a week. 18 years of age, every single day with every single penny I had. Beg, borrow, steal, hook, scam, scheme, and all to get the money to have the bet. There was 3 real stages of gambling for me. The first one was about the money. So how the money increased, you know, to keep up with the buzz. So it went from £2 to a £5 to a tenner to 20 to 50 to 100 to 500, all the way up to the second last bet I had on the horse was £20,000. And the reason why it was £20,000, and I suppose this is the thing, and I suppose if I was in a Gamblers Anonymous meeting tonight, I wouldn't be mentioning figures, because figures don't really matter. And but they mattered for me at the time. And the reason why those figures were significant for me was that, as far as I was concerned, every bet I had was for a reason. And the reason was that I was going to win back all of the money I owed to other people. I was going to pay them back, and I was going to start the rest of my life. And I kept telling myself that. And even though now you sit back and you look at yourself and you look at the life you're leading and you realise that was never, ever going to happen. Ever. At the time, you convince yourself that that's exactly what you're doing. And even when you're stealing money, even when I stole money, I always told myself it was coming from a good place. That I was coming from a place where I'm going to win this money, I'm going to leave that back, I'm going to sort out my life, But when I gambled, and I think this is a significant thing for me, and I only realised it later in my life and when I got into recovery, was that when I gambled, I didn't just gamble to win back the money. I gambled to win back the self-respect and the self-esteem and the integrity and the relationships and the friendships and the family members. And the reason why I was gambling for them was that they were the collateral damage through my gambling. Because when I gambled, I was very single-minded about how I did it. I didn't want anybody with me. I wanted to do it on my terms. I controlled everything around me in order to manipulate the people around me in order to get the freedom to go and have the bet. So, for example, at a family event, I would deliberately fall out with everybody so I could get out the door and get away at the gambling. Gamble controlled my life. The best way I can describe it is when I started gambling, I controlled it. So I decided how much money, I decided how much time, I decided where the money came from. In the end, it completely controlled me. So as far as the money, it was how much money I had in my pocket. As far as the time, was 24/7. And as far as the things I was willing to do, a serious event happened in my life in 1989. My father was diagnosed with cancer. He was given roughly 5 or 6 months to live. He spent most of that in hospital. I didn't go and see my father during that time because Sean talks about emotions. I didn't have any emotions at that time. Gambling had stripped me of all those emotions because every emotion that I got, I suppressed it, and I gambled. And when my father died, I didn't have any tears from my father. So I suppressed that emotion. And when we were actually playing probably the biggest game I'd ever played, and that was an All-Ireland semi-final against Meath. And we were beating the game, but I walked into the change rooms. There was 82,500 people in Croke Park, and I walked into the change room, and the first person to stand there was my cousin. And he said, just get your stuff, get it into the bag, let's get up the road, don't get changed. So before anybody else got into the change rooms, I was in that car. We got a guard escort from Croke Park directly to the border, and I told myself that day, that's it. I'm never gambling again. I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to tell my father I loved him because I'd never told him that before. I'm going to tell my family what's going on. I'm going to ask for help. And I continued that. That was just the 3 things, little mantra in my head. I just continued that the whole way up the road. Got to the hospital. Was about here to the black curtain now, away from walking into my father's room. And during that time, I did what I did for 20 years. I clammed up. I didn't tell my father I loved him. I didn't tell my family what was going on, and I continued to gamble. My father died on the Wednesday, so there was no more chances to tell him that I loved him. And the final piece of the jigsaw for me was, I already talked about the money, I talked about the time, and I talked about the things I was willing to do to get the money. Well, all of the principles or values or whatever were taught by our parents or through life's learnings. All those things went out the window, and I didn't care where the money came from anymore. I was feeding my addiction, and that was it. That was the most important thing to me, regardless of what I had to do. Because I remember eventually getting into recovery, and I remember a counsellor. I had a one-to-one counsellor in a treatment centre in Galway. And he said to me, listen, you're going to need to go to try and get the 90 meetings in 90 days. And I said, that's not going to be possible. You know, he said, well, you need to get as many meetings as you can. And I said, well, that'll be a lot of hassle. And he said to me, what would you have done to get a bet on? And I said, I would have walked across broken glass. I would have done anything. I would have sold my mother to get a bet on. And he said, exactly. And once he said that, sort of clicked for me. And then I sort of put the same amount of store in my recovery as I did in the effort that I put into gambling. But I think the big thing about gambling for me was the thing that it stripped from me. And I wasn't aware of some of it, and I was aware of other things. But I think the emotions thing, I do a little bit of work now for a foundation called Sport and Chance. It's a foundation that was set up by Tony Adams 20 plus years ago. But I listened to him talking in Belfast one night, and he said something that stuck with me. And he said, the greatest thing that you'll get back whenever you stop gambling or you get into recovery is you'll get your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions back. And he said the worst thing you'll get when you get into recovery is you'll get your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions back. So you have to be sort of careful sometimes, you know, what you wish for. But certainly I was very cut off as a young lad. If I wasn't gambling or I wasn't hooking or scamming or scheming, I was laying in the bed with the covers over my head. And whenever things started to unravel for me, I only thought about one thing, and that was running. I never thought about facing up to it, never, because I'd never faced up to anything in my life, and I suppose this was the first thing that I was ever going to. As I seen it at that time, I had a couple of choices. I had suicidal thoughts. I had a plan of how I was going to go about doing it, and I also had this niggling thing in my head that what if I was to ask for help? So eventually one day I turned around and I did ask for help, and when I asked for help, the help came flooding to me. And I suppose Sean's right. Whenever you hear, addiction, the first thing you think about is the negative connotations, and that's obviously fair enough. And I think if you talk to my family, they would tell you just how, just what I put them through, and how it affected them, and how it affected the people around me, how it affected the guys I played football with, all those sort of things. But there is another side to that. There's a flip side to all of those things, and that is that there is hope for people in that situation. There's no such thing as a lost cause, and there is the opportunity now for people like you see here tonight, like us guys who were able to get into treatment and are able to, to talk about it now. Because one of the major things, and I know Connor was talking about, being nervous about, chatting about it and different things like that. When I first talked about it, I wasn't asked to talk about it. I had gone to a treatment centre in Galway, and it was run by a nun called Sister Concilio. And she rang me one day and she says, there's an event in Newry tonight and you're speaking at it. And this was at 9 o'clock in the morning. And she had known for months that was happening, but she wasn't going to tell me. And when I first went up to talk about it, I was worried about how I was going to articulate my story. And I shared that with her, that I was worried about, and she says, just talking in layman's terms. Just tell people how you felt. And once I did that, then I became more comfortable in doing that. And to be honest, recovery became easier as a result of being able to talk about it, because for so long I was completely closed off,
Sean, can I just maybe ask you to talk about your experience and how it took gripping you and what was the effect of it?
I think when I moved away, I was really, really young, and it was a case of, I can't go to Liverpool Football Club, this is the start of it, this is great, this is amazing. And when I got there, 15, I was put in a 3-storey house with an 82-year-old woman. So I had my own wee living room and my bedroom, 3 stories up. The scariest looking house in the world. Halfway up was a big statue of Our Lady. And I used to be terrified going to bed, because I had to walk past it and I kept waiting for it to turn and look at me, right? So, but I was on my own, but who was I to go and knock on the door and complain? I've just signed YTS and 3-4 year professional with Liverpool and getting stupid money at a young age, and from Gaelic, you don't get that, but I have a chance to help my family. So I thought, no, you know what, let's get on with it. But I was, I have to say, I was really homesick, and I think even now still, Oisin and Connor, I think there's still a wee thing that people in the sport won't speak up because they think that the hierarchies will see it as a sign of weakness. I think it's getting better, but without doubt back then, that was a case for me. I was over taking the steps on the Liverpool Uni in September, and we met up with all the boys who won the Youth Cup, and we were sitting chatting, and one of them turned around and says to the wife, Jesus, he could play, and she's going, I just wouldn't talk. We don't talk. I was really, really homesick. So she started getting into this big conversation, and I'm going, sitting here, so you're a wee back and forth. And they didn't realise that I felt like that, because from the minute I hit the training ground, it's bubbly. The wee actor come out to me, it's, great, I'm here, brilliant, But a part of it wasn't an act when I was on the pitch. That was my get out. I didn't think about home, I didn't think about family, I didn't think about any of the things, and I'll speak later on about some trauma and stuff, just with my sister passing away, which had a big impact in my life. I never really spoke about, I actually never spoke about that when I was younger. All I used to do was fight. Used to get into fights because I couldn't control my anger and stuff. So I used to go, but I was happy. I was playing football, and I was doing really, really well. Like I started off, I was doing really well, and there was big hopes for me. But again, as it went on, and I know back then there was a bit of a culture with drinking and gambling, and even when you listen to the ex-players, you know, the actual players who went on and made it and stuff, to tell you that it was just part of the norm. And because I was on my own, I thought, I'm going out with the boys to get out. So I started doing that, and then because I'm from Derry and I'm playing with Liverpool, the phone's going crazy. Can you get tickets? We're coming over. Can you get tickets? We're coming over. And because I couldn't wait to see people from back home, and it got to the point that it doesn't have to be my mates or family or nothing. If I just heard, there's a group of boys from Derry down in the hotel on the Lash, I'm here. Who wants tickets? No, just nearly for company. Like I say, never had the confidence to speak about that when I was younger. And I was young and I was fit and I was considered international levels the whole way through. I was captain under 21s when I was 16. I was in the Northern Ireland international full squad at 17. I was teams looking to buy me, but everything was behind it. It just wasn't good in my life, and I'll pick up a phone. Daddy, how did you get on the race on? I said, we beat United 3-1. How did you get on? I scored 3. Aye, brilliant. Oh, that's great. No, everything right. Aye, brilliant. Put the phone down. Used to walk from the payphone up the house crying. You know, get the tears out before I got on because in case the landlady seen me. He says he was a wee bit upset or whatever. So the tears and all the way, snatters off a jumper. Up past Our Lady, 3 stories up. You know what I mean? I was really fit back in, so I had to go up the stairs all the time. And just go up and get into bed, and just like really low. And then the next day I would just do the same act, the same routine. But that hour and a half training every day was great because I forgot about it. But back then, everything's structured now, but back then it used to be, we used to meet up at 9:30. We'd start training, 10 o'clock, 10:15, we finished for 11:45. And you were either going to play snooker, which was snooker and pints, or you were going to play golf, which was pints, because I didn't play golf. I'd wait till they finished the golf. No, it was just, everything was just to kind of get out. But again, I thought that's just part of the culture and stuff. So when that carried on, moved to a couple of clubs, thought maybe leave Liverpool, get an environment, big city, you know, can I get out of there and stuff. I'm getting a wee bit older now. So I thought, I'll buy a house. Do you know what I mean? We settled down. Bought a house, and I forgot then. I didn't have my landlady, 82, who was just me and her. I was on my own then. I was going, Jesus. And I was down in Ipswich, now I loved Ipswich. It was a great club and stuff. And I'm not knocking it, but it was almost worse because Ipswich was small, like Derry, but they absolutely idolised the footballers. So I was in the first team squad there, and there was only Jim and Jill and myself. So our accents stood out an absolute mile. So everybody wanted to buy a beer. You know, I took a beer, right? You know. So I always had this inkling that I had an addictive personality, you know, and I've always been like, act without thinking, you know what I mean? The only time I ever thought was to put on the act, but whenever it was, they said, go and do so, I'm your man. Or else my baby would come up with the idea, you know, to get people out and around me. So that was going on, and then throughout all the football, I never had a thing with drugs, never had a thing, because professional football, you're drug tested quite a lot, you know, so the thing was never drug. Didn't take paracetamol, didn't take Lemsips, didn't take nothing like that. And then I was back here playing, that's jumping to the main part, and I snapped my elbow, just above my elbow, my arm just completely in half. Couldn't wait for a taxi, I was at a party, couldn't wait for an ambulance. Somebody gets out of the taxi to get on the party. I jumped on. I thought, it might not be that bad. You know the roundabout there at bottom of the bridge before you go up the Crescent Link? I thought, it might not be that bad. I'm holding like that. And the taxi man went round it a wee bit quick. And this part of my arm just hit the window. And I saw, but I'd been partying, and I saw, fuck, Jesus, that can't be right. What do you think of that? And your man's going, Jesus, put that away. And it was like, so we're over and then that was me, and that was the start of my, it nearly killed me, prescription meds. Stripped me of everything. It completely stripped me. My feelings, you know what you're saying about the feelings, didn't feel nothing after a while. So there was obviously a build-up to it. You're taking your medication, you're in hospital on for 10 days. My dad had to sign a form. I come out of the operation, my dad's standing there. Now, Dad's 6'2", big man, my hero, you know what I mean? And I remember standing looking at him, or I was lying and looking at him, and he was grey. And I said, what's wrong with you? He's all, no idea, just know what's just going on there. He said, you went down for 2 operations, I was on for 7.5 hours. But because they couldn't get the clotting, they stopped. They were afraid of the clot coming around on the heart or whatever. So he had to sign a form. They say, if it doesn't stop this time, chop his arm off. I was like, hard luck, that must be bad for you. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, whoa. So I was going, I can't be right. And I'm for 10 days. So when I'm putting opiates, putting tramadol, I'm putting gabapentins, I'm putting on these really strong painkillers. And I remember the first time I took them, and this was coming off the morphine, I remember just because my body didn't even have paracetamol in before, I remember feeling sick, you know, because they were that strong. I remember going to my mum, there's no way I'm going to be able to stick in these tablets. Jeez, was I wrong? You know, like I took it to a completely different level with the build-up of the intake. And I remember going to my doctor one day. My mum was concerned about me, so was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. And he says, I'll come on with you. I said, no, sit you out there. Because I knew if they were there, they would have told the truth. But his doctor asked me how much was I taking a day. And I think I told her maybe a third of what I was taking. She started crying. She went out and spoke to my mum and says, he should be dead every day. So they had this big talk to me, and I said, all right. And I was like yourself, time to change. I would just open up and speak to him. There's other things. I'm holding this all on side. It's not about the tablets, and all these things going on in my head of thinking, that sounds pretty right. That's what I'll do. But I didn't. I dropped them home and I went and got more tablets. And then I knew then that I'm in trouble. And so I was saying to Oisin just before he came on here, I thought I had a grip of it. I thought to myself, right, I'm cut myself down, I'm going to wean myself down. I've been training again. And I had a crash with a van, a work van, and went over this drop. But you know, they hear now the stories and all the films, everything goes on the slow motion, and my life slowed up and all this here. Well, it actually did happen to me, because I had time to pray to my sister, who I miss so much. I asked her to look after my kids. I asked her to look after my parents. But if she got me out of this, I would try and turn my life around, because I thought, I don't want to die. So the van done all the flipped over, boom, rocks, boom, boom, boom. And I landed upside down in the van, and the van was all crushed up. I thought, I need to get out of here. But I was afraid to move in case I couldn't move. And then next thing, the smoke again started coming on. I thought, I'm in trouble here. So I realised then I could move. So I had punched the side bit of the window, it wasn't broken, and climbed out. And I got about 20 or 30 yards, and I realised I left 2 strips of tramadol in the van, and climbed back into the van, coming up with smoke, it could have blown. Went up to the hospital. Was terrified of the hospital, checking my bloods, you know, all this here. So I was in Letterkenny, signed myself out, walked to Derry, thinking, keep my story straight, keep my head straight. But obviously, because I was a work fan, I was delivering like newspapers in bulk, shops, where's my papers? Couldn't get hold of me, and then obviously checked the hospital, and they got me just like close to the area coming on. So I sat down and I said, right, listen, I need to change here. And so I went to the doctor and asked, could she just give me a certain amount of tablets to do me that day? And then I thought, no, listen, daily scrubs, just so I can't get no more, but you could always get more, you know. So I was buying more of people, you know what I mean? I was putting them in really bad situations. I was lying to my wife. All this time, all these things was going on. Like I said, no feelings, like nothing at all. I had a young family, and I was still able to act. Great stuff, we're doing but I didn't feel it inside. And anybody with children knows it. Your children sense it, you know. So it's carried on still for another few years until I got to the point where I thought, I can't do it on my own, I can't cut down, I can't be trusted. They just get the tablets that my wife's given me, or just to stick to these here because I'll just go and buy some, or I'll keep torturing people to get more because my body needed it. I was, even though I couldn't feel emotion, I couldn't feel happy, I couldn't feel love, I couldn't feel shame. I was numb on their feelings, but I knew my body wasn't right because it was like something out of a film, Train Spotting. Every day I woke up shaking, sore, mind going 100 miles an hour, couldn't sit at peace, really uncomfortable feeling. So I had some money saved up, and I just said to the wife, listen, that's me away now for a month. Where you go? I said, I'm going to rehab. I couldn't wait, so I just went, money in, and away I went and changed my life.
Very good. I want to come back to just a wee bit, maybe just in yourself, Oisin, but I just want to give Connor a wee opportunity to talk about himself. I'm going to maybe just ask you, was there a single thing you've sort of alluded to? Was there a single thing, Connor, just your own experience? And yours is the most recent, and in recent times, and I think most people, noticed your absence from Cliftonville. There might have been people heard, and maybe sort of, as you know, just where the way rumours go, but when people heard you were back in Cliftonville, and then you opened up about it, I think most people were saying, fair play to you for doing it, but now I would hope that you would go on and flourish in your career. So just, if you give some sort of sense how it got a grip of you.
Well, summer day, she had my first bet at 16. I mean, going to follow-up training in Shanty after school. Normally I would walk my own way and go to training as normal and get a bite to eat before, but this one particular day I walked out the back gates of the college, and there was two of my muckers at the time were walking as well, and I walked women's right up to Shanty, and I was going to go to my normal route, but they were talking about doing a football bet for the night, and I actually never stepped foot in the bookies that day, but they went in for me, and they brought me out to teams, and they explained everything how it went. I had a fair idea, like I wasn't stupid, but I remember sticking a pound on the bet and watching the teams come in that night and thinking, this is unbelievable, having a pound turn into 17 pound, I think it was at the time, and at that age, 16, it's a lot of money at that age, like. And I remember thinking it was great, getting in the next day and giving them the slip to go and collect it for me, because I was still scared to go into the bookies at the time, because I knew my ma and my dad were against it because of family problems before, and they talked to me about doing the right things in life, basically. Like, I was taught at a young age to do everything right, and gambling was one of them that they had mentioned that they do, basically, along with drinking and drugs. But that was the start of it for me. I remember after that, it didn't take a grip on me straight away, but over time and over becoming more older and getting more money, especially we're working in the City Hotel and starting to play right there, things that started to get on top of me, and because I was 18, I was allowed in the bookies for a start. I had an ID, I could get in and out, and things just took its toll. I've always realised when I look back, when I went away for 8 months, I realised that I do have an addictive personality. Obviously it's something that's in me, and obviously at the age of 11, I remember being addicted to my Xbox as a start. I only realised that when I went away, that was something that took control even back then, because I was missing days of school for that, missing football and all at a young age for just playing an Xbox up until 4 or 5 in the morning and all. And, so that was the start of it for me, knowing that I had an addictive personality. And obviously if I could go back in time, I would change making that first bet. But things just spiraled out of control. I ended up betting the wages away every month for the City Hotel and every month for the football, and just losing everything that I had, basically, like. And when I was 18, coming towards the end of that year in 2016, was the first time that my family had to pull me out of trouble, basically, because I'd taken a lot of loans out online, and it was the first time that they knew about it. I'd borrowed money as well off some close friends of my mum and dad's and my brother as well, and that's how it came to head, because they threatened to go and tell them what was happening, and I thank a certain person for them letting them know in the first time that it happened. And I was in 2016, and everything kind of got worse after that. I went clean for a few months, but You know, I never really wanted to change things. I never really wanted to stop betting. I only done it because my family had control of my finances. They had control of certain things that stopped me from gambling basically at the time. But, you know, as gamblers, as addicts, you find a way. And I found a way to manipulate that kind of system that the family had gone on and lying and covering up and manipulating everyone around me just to be able to get a bet on. And I started gambling again in 2017, halfway through. Started again a small bet with a fiver on the way to a football match. And again, end of 2017, another kind of small collapse basically of owing money out and get myself in the debt. And that kind of spiral, that kind of circle kept repeating itself every single year. There was always a breaking point every year where I would basically run out of options because there was nowhere to turn to, no other option to get money or no other option to get out of a situation. So, you know, every year my family were the one that called upon, and for a few times they did bail me out, but there was one time, 2020, where they had said no for the first time. It was last year, or 2 years ago now. And they told me no for the first time. They weren't going to bail me out, and I was thinking, right, what am I going to do? So I went to spoke to Cliftonville, and Cliftonville bailed me out. But again, I didn't want to stop gambling. I was just doing it because I had no other option. I was looking for money. I was getting money left, right and centre. And, you know, that circle, like I say, kept repeating. And kind of the end of 2020, December, January is probably the worst 2 months of my life, basically, because, you know, I'd done so many bad things. My family, my friends, people around me. I'd lied, borrowed, and, you know, manipulated every single person around me. And, you know, in January there, this time last year, I was telling Oisin, you know, it was the breaking point in my life. There was the point where I made probably the biggest mistake, but looking back on it now, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, I stole £12,500 my own mother. And people were probably thinking, oh, how can you get to that point? But, you know, I had no other option basically at the time. And I'm not proud of what I've done, but I wouldn't change it because it was a real point that my family really woke up to how bad I was. And at the time, I was numb. And like the lads talk about feelings, I didn't really care at the time what I'd done. I just wanted out of the situation that I was in. I was getting threatened. You know, my football was getting threatened. Never play football again. People were coming to the door. You know, all those scary things that were happening in my life. And, you know, when I took the money, I was just glad that that kind of thing was kind of sorted. But, you know, I had the big problem of my mum finding out. And, you know, I knew she'd find out. I knew that there was no way that she wouldn't see it. There's a lot of money. And, you know, the 3 weeks in January where when I'd taken the money and I was sitting up in my room, basically lying in my bed for 3 weeks straight, I'd stopped playing football. I'd stopped, basically shut down in my life. Those were probably the 3 worst weeks I've ever had in my life because I was numb, but that's all right. I had just shut down basically, and you know I knew my ma she was going to find out at some point, but the feeling of anxiety every day, waking up, know what time she's going to find out, or when she's going to look at her bank, or when is it going to come, you know. When I think back in the moments now, I'm thinking, I'm proud now where I'm at, but I can never let myself get to that stage where I'm lying in my bed every day, you know, giving up my life and giving up on my family and giving up on everything around me, my football and everything that was there for me. And, you know, the moment she found out, you know, looking back on it, she showed me tremendous love. She showed me, that's a way off again, she showed me what everything a mother's about, you know, she forgave me. But in saying that, at the time, I was just glad that she didn't go as mad as she did, because it was just at the stage where I was empty as well. But you know, she forgave me straight away. I remember sitting down in a room going, Connor, we need to sort this problem out, really, because you know, no son should ever do that to their mother, especially after all the years of love and you know everything that she gave me. And I remember ringing the community centre community program that I went to called Chinaklo, and you know, ringing Keith, he's my mucker now, that I would contact him nearly every day and we'd stay in touch. You know, they start the process of healing. Turn out. Good man. So we started the process. We rang the community. We started meetings with them basically. And I thought at the time I got away with this because my mum had said no, go away and do 3 months. And deep down I still really didn't want to change anything. I was just happy that was all it was. You know, a couple of months of rehab and I'm back out again and everything's grand. You know, kind of I remember saying to me, Mucker Jack, you know, I've got away with one again, like basically, like, and he's going how? No, and but I'm glad. And another thing happened after that. My brother found out what I'd done, and he took control of everything. He kicked me out of the house. I had to stay in my mucker's house for a week. And those moments now, thinking back as well, is moments of you can never go back to them stages as well, of not being in your own family's home for bad reasons, basically. Now I'm out living my own because you know, it's time to grow up again or stuff like that. But I got free of the house, and you know, that week away, being out of my ma's, kind of reviewed a bit of reality check because it was the first time that someone's really dealt with it in that way. And they picked me up for the last meeting to go into the community, and my brother gave me an ultimatum. No, when you come back to the house, I'll take your phone off you, take everything off you. You're living by my rules now. This is 2 weeks before I entered the community, because it's a process of they want to make sure you're right before you go in there and stuff. So on the way home from Dublin, I'd said I give up everything for the first time. I held my hands up and said, right, you can take control now. And I think that was a big part of it, was just letting someone else take control, because usually us as addicts were in control of everything, and if my brother didn't do it, I probably would have found another way out of everything I was doing, found another route and not gone to rehab and not gone to sort my life out, and you know, I thank him for doing that as well. So on the way home I went home and he took control of everything and had no phone, no contact with the outside world for maybe 3 weeks before I went in. So I went away. They knocked down south for 3.5 months, and I think the first month was probably the hardest because I wasn't there for myself. I was there just to please my family. I was there just because I had no other option, because my brother took control of everything, and you know, he's threatening police and stuff, and I didn't want to go down that route. And you know, that was the first month was the toughest. But you know, I spoke about it on the podcast. You know, I had a turning point where, you know, I seen a lot of Waynes running around Easter time, and I seen a lot of happy families of people who were in the community before, and you know, they really opened my eyes up to what life was about in that moment. They really showed me that there is more to life and that addicts can change their life around. Example, the lads, you know, it is possible. And I remember speaking to a few of them, what did you do, or how did you stick so long? Because lads go and do 6 months, 12 months, a year and a half, 2 years. Some people don't leave, you know, it just depends what you need and what you really want to do with your life. And so I spoke to him and a couple of family members down there, and we got a fair idea of what they do. You know, just they stick up with the program and trust on it, basically. Like, so after a month or so, I came back to feelings, you know, because I started to really hurt for what I'd done then, because the emptiness went away, kind of, because I started to feel love again, started to feel what life was about. And again, it became harder because you started to hurt for things that you done to your ma, what you done to your friends, what you done to people. And you know, having to heal from them took a long time, because that's why I stayed away for so long, because it took me a good 6 or 7 months to really come to terms with everything that I'd done and the person that I became. Because I became someone that I wasn't, and I became someone that was just lost in the darkness of addiction, basically. Like, and it was hard to accept that. It was hard to accept the person that you became, but also I knew deep down that there was a good person there, and there was a good wee boy from Comore was always there, you know what I mean? So I went away and I stuck at the program. I got transferred over to Italy after 3.5 months, and that was an experience of a lifetime, basically. Like, to meet thousands of addicts trying to change their life, thousands of people who, you know, some come from different backgrounds, living on the street, heroin addicts, the gamblers, the people with depression, there was all sorts of things over there. Like, and I think, you know, the life lessons learned over there is something that, you know, I can never forget. I can never, you know, it's something that's going to stick in my mind every single day. And it's motivation too, because, you know, one bad decision for me and I'm back at square one, basically. Like, and you know, he's saying 16 years without a bet, and I'm coming up now to, in 3 weeks' time, a year off it, a year without a bet, and I never thought I would say that either. And it's going to be a proud moment for me, because the person I was a year ago he's always going to be there, because addiction follows you the rest of your life. But he's put the back burner for now, so for the rest of my life. And I just have to be wary of falling into bad habits and falling into traps, and being aware of my environment and stuff as well, because they all shape you as well. And like I say, one bad decision and you're back to square one. So it's just about staying on top of everything.
Very good, Conor. Oisin, and just in terms, I mean, a big thing that comes obviously from the 3 year stories is no matter how deep you feel you're in the hole in reality, there's a way out of it. You are the example of it. I'm just wondering, what was the road to recovery like for you? Who was the people who helped you? And if you have a message for someone in this position, how do you reach out? First of all, I'm sure you have to realise it yourself, but how do you reach out, and who's the people you should reach out to?
Well, I suppose when I think about my recovery, I think about towards the end of my gambling, I thought the only way out of my addiction was through my addiction, if you know what I mean. Because I always wanted to have that last big bet, big win, sort out all these people, but I know now that was never ever going to happen. But it took me a long time to realise that. I had a lot of false dawns, a lot of times where I said to myself, listen, that's me, done, dusted. And 20 minutes later, I could be, manufacturing money from somewhere or another to feed that addiction again. But I suppose the big thing for me was that my last days gambling, I did the same thing as I always did when I left the bookies. I flicked down through my phone and I thought, where's my next victim coming from? Bank, building society, friend, family member. And I remember I had over 500 contacts, and I flicked down through and I realised I'd burn my bridges with all of the people who were going to help me financially. So then I said to myself, what if I was actually asked for help? And I flicked down through my phone again and I thought, no, these people aren't going to help me. I've hurt them too much. I've alienated them. I've lied to them for 16 years. Whereas when you're a compulsive gambler or a compulsive liar, two things go hand in hand. And I remember, coming home having no intention of breaking down, and that's exactly what I did. And I hadn't cried in 16 years with physical pain or emotional pain. And I started to cry, and I started to tell my brother and sister what was going on. And I asked for help, and my brother-in-law knew a guy in Castlederg who had been through Sister Concilios before for alcohol, and he drove me to Castlederg, and I met him, and he told me I needed to go to see Sister Concilio, and I went to Tipperary and seen her. This all happened in the space of like a couple of days, and she was the first person to tell me I was addicted. Because believe it or not, I had got to 30 years of age thinking that somebody who was addicted was laying on a park bench with a brown bag and a bottle of wine in it. And like, that seems surreal now when you hear Conor, talking at 23 or 4 years of age about, what he's been through. But genuinely, I got to that stage in my life, as I say, and that was the only picture of somebody in addiction that I had. And when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see that person. When I run out onto the pitch, I didn't see that person. And but she told me I was addicted, and a week later I went to a treatment centre and I started learning about addiction. I was resistant to it because, like probably us all, were people pleasing to begin with, because when people talk about the light bulb moment, or the moment that I realised, I didn't really have that light bulb moment. I just knew I was in the shit, and the only way out of it for me, as I said, there was two ways out of it for me, and for me to hold my hands up and actually ask for help, didn't seem like at that time the greatest thing to do, or it didn't seem the most attractive thing to do, if you like, and but that's exactly what I ended up doing. I'm lucky that that's the route, obviously, that I took. But it was tough because you don't want to show weakness. You don't, these guys talk about, Like, I played an amateur sport. These guys were playing, professional sport. I talk to people who play professional sport all the time. They don't want to talk about this because they're worried about the next contract that's coming down the line, and they're worried about how that's perceived. And in certain clubs, it is still perceived as, weakness, or it is perceived in a certain way. But I was just worried that that I wouldn't be able to face up to it. I was worried that I was going to hold my hands up and say, listen, this thing has me beat. This thing has absolutely destroyed my life. But I was still worried that I mightn't be able to recover from this. I had done the same things in my life basically for 16 years. I was a slave to an addiction, and I was worried that, that I was not going to be able to break that. But once, as I say, that I was lucky in the people that I met when I went into treatment. As I say, one of the counsellors, as well as, talking about, how much I had to work at my addiction, just talked about honesty, and he talked about being able to look people in the eye, and tell them what was going on. I'd never done that before. I had two, and I'm sorry I'm finishing this, but I had there was two sides to my brain. I wasn't sharing anything with anybody. You could ask me about football, you could ask me about women or cars. I'd talk to you about them things, no problem whatsoever, but I couldn't talk to you about the other stuff, the stuff that actually meant something. And when I realised that, I was going to start opening up and talking about things, because when I wanted to stop gambling, 4 years before I stopped gambling, I wanted to stop gambling. And I had lots of false dawns, lots of times where I said to myself, I'm not actually doing that again, because it only ends up in the one way. Like, people often say to me, oh, look at the good times you had gambling. Genuinely, I don't know whether I've been blanking them out or what, but I don't remember any good times from gambling, because even if you win, even as compulsive gamblers, we win, we do realise that that money is only going to one place. That money is going to cause more destruction and devastation than us losing initially. And I suppose once I sort of made peace with that, and made peace with the fact that that I couldn't gamble again, then I started to make peace with myself. And the thing about gambling, and the thing about addiction in general, is that it destroys any confidence that you have. As I say, I went into that treatment centre not knowing if I was going to. Instead of saying to myself, like, if that was a football match, I'd be saying to myself, regardless what happens today, we're going to win. Yeah. I'm going to come out on top today. Whereas with this stuff, like, I mean, it was just destroying my life. And I know 3 people up here who played sport, only for sport at that time. And I know this sounds dramatic. Sport was the only thing that kept me alive during that period. I might need for 46 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. I used to go to training specifically, where people say, do you not miss training? Do you not, stay in the bookies? I used to go to training because you know why? Because when that training was finished, there was a meal at the end of it. Yeah. And sometimes I would go to training in order to get that meal at the end of it. And that was the thing that was dragging me there. And the other thing was, when I went to training and I get out of the car, all the madness stopped. And for the next 2.5 or 3 hours, I was safe. That was my safe place. So there was no light bulb moment for me. There was a build-up of things, and then there was a thing where I couldn't handle the pressure anymore. And that's why I stopped gambling.
And do you find talking about it helps in that continuing process of recovery?
I have to talk about it, because that was the point I was trying to make. I'm glad you come back to me. One side of my brain was telling me, this is not good for you, don't do it. But if you're not speaking to anybody else other than yourself, it's all internal thoughts. And the other side of my brain was going, fuck, gamble surely. It's going to be different this time. It's not going to be the same as the last time. You're not going to gamble as much. You're going to win. You're going to, do you know what I mean? You're going to be able to control it. You'd gamble in a different way. The amount of time where I said to myself, on a Monday, this is going to be different. When I get my wages on Friday, I'm going to put £100 aside. I'm going to put £100, and I'm going to save £100. And I'm going to put £100 in, and I can gamble with that. fucking, it mightn't last me 10 minutes. I'm already stuck in this money over here that was supposed to be, for something else. So, and that's why it's important for me to talk about it. I'm not sure if my wife has arrived yet, but when I met my wife, it was 2 years out of treatment, and even if I only go home in the evening and say I had a fucking brilliant day or I had a shit day or whatever it was, that's more than I ever would have said to me. Because see, when I played football and I was going home in the evenings, or as people asked me how I was, I'd nearly throw them a high five on the way down the street, just to show them that everything in my life was absolutely top class. I used to get changed beside a guy in Cross, who's my best mate, and we changed together. We changed beside each other for 20 years. When the new guys come into the change rooms and they go in and they're always in before you, and you go in and you go, fuck yeah, that's what I've been sitting there for 20 years. But we used to sit beside each other. Now he's dead now, and I went through 16 years of a chronic gambling addiction. We used to say the same thing to each other when we went into training. Well, how was your day? Brilliant. How was yours? Mine was even better than yours was, because everything in my life is top class. And there was us both struggling, and yet, do you know what I mean? We didn't have the confidence even to say to each other we were best mates.
See, the reason why I asked you, because I know Connor in recent times has talked about whether or not you should talk about it, and I know now that you've sort of said you're committed to talk about it because you want, you hear Oisin, it helps him, but it also helps our people. I'm just wondering how you feel about speaking about this, maybe a senior podcast, but is this the first time you spoke about it in a public forum?
It is, I think, is that working? I think, I know it's like my mental health now, especially these days, people don't talk about their feelings or talk about what's going on in their lives, but, like he says, it's helped my recovery, and I think it's something that I've learned to do, to speak to anyone. Need the mic? I think speaking to even my brother, or speaking to anyone in football, or speaking to my manager Paddy, or speaking to just anybody about how my day really was, or if there was something that's hurt me or whatever, I think it's something that us men need to do more. Really do believe that now. Maybe a year and a half ago you asked me, I would probably have just said, no, shut up, like you're talking, whatever. And I think, no, definitely now it's something that I believe in, and especially when I went away in them houses, the lads really get around each other, and it's not like counselling where you sit in a circle and you talk like that. It's one-to-one deep conversations about your real feelings, and you've no bar in them environments because you're with other addicts, and you're not going to judge you, they understand that you're feeling that way. I think these days we really need to do more for that, and think, for me sitting here tonight, I was nervous before, but I think going into these things will help me in my recovery, and hopefully I can help anybody in the crowd or anyone watching will take something from it, because there is a way back from the destruction, basically, which is what I had done in my life, and there is definitely there is help out there as well. I know everyone said there needs to be more in the town, but if you really look for it, there is services there, communities there, for help, and there is people willing to listen as well. I think especially the two lads here will back me up. If someone texts me on social media or message me, I will try my best to help them, because I know how it feels, and I would never want anyone to feel the way I felt, because it's not a nice way to live or feel.
Okay. Before I maybe ask the floor for maybe one or two questions, can I just ask you this question, Sean? I know you went on to work for DePaul and with homelessness. Did your experience help you, dealing with people like that, and did their experiences reinforce your recovery?
Just like Connor said, you have an empathy then, because you understand. You've been in the shoes, so when someone's sitting there hurting, when someone's struggling, and I enjoyed. I don't enjoy, because it's not a nice thing to be doing, but I enjoyed the conversations and the interactions, and knowing that they knew that I understood. And a bit like, I remember myself, I was going, I wish I was like him, I wish I could beat it, I wish I could get there, but I can't. I just can't. I'm different from Emmons. No, I wasn't. You know, I wasn't, and that's, you know, when we're talking about helping other people. Do you sit and it's almost like you're giving yourself excuse not to do it? I can't do it, so I'll carry on. But you can do it, you know, and that having that first conversation, that opening up, break down and cry. If it happens, you just be honest, and being honest with yourself, and it's just going to open up more doors and stuff and that. But I really like being able to give something back, because, like I say, it changed my life. Not only did it change my own life and keep me alive, it changed my relationships with the most important people in my life, my family, my friends, you know, and who've been brilliant, who stuck by me and stuff and that as well. So it was great to be able to give something back. But again, too, we spoke about this before, is you have to have your own balance. I changed jobs then, because I was doing the 12-hour shifts, right? Loved it. And then I was away coaching. Love the football. You know, two things that I loved doing, but I wasn't getting enough time with my kids. And I knew, right, that's not good for me, because then it starts playing, you know, thoughts in my head again and stuff now, you know. So it's just about getting that balance. And like we were chatting about before, that's self-care, you know. Like I go to the gym 6:30 in the morning before I go to school 4 or 5 times a week. Half the time I don't want to go. I mean, half the time when I look up, it's dark, set the alarm. No, I'll get a wee snooze. Wife hits me a slap in the head, get up, you keep me awake. Right? But I'm up and away and I'm at it. My day started. And, you know, I remember someone saying to me in rehab, you're going to have to be selfish. All right, selfish. I wanted to fight them, because I thought, I'm not selfish. I mean, even when I was doing all this, I'm not selfish. I always wanted to make sure everybody else was okay. I would care about other people or myself. I'm not selfish. And then I got to understand the word. It meant that you have to look after, take care of yourself, to take care of the people that's important. Because if you're not, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't give them that full you. And it all starts from just having that open conversation, whether it be someone that you love who you open up to, or whether it be a complete stranger that you reach out to. And things can change, can't they? And anybody can get there. Anybody. You just got to believe in that, like.
Thank you, Sean. Anybody on the floor like to ask the question? There's a Roman mic here, so George will assist in the process.
What's it? We're all going quiet, as usual, is it? We got one here yet? Would you mind standing up, please, so we can...
All right, folks. Oisin, I'm reading a book at the moment. You may have read it. You sound like him. I'm sorry to tell you, you actually sound worse than him.
Merson, isn't it?
Sorry. Who?
Merson, no.
I'm in the 9th chapter of Paul Merson's. Have you read it?
I haven't read it. I've read his first book. Is this his
I have
first
read
book or
your
second
book. I have read your book. I read it 3 years ago. I was bought 2 books at Christmas. One of the books, which I wanted. The other book, I didn't know about it. The 2 books came. One was Paul Merson's, which I didn't know anything about. And the other book was a gentleman who you know as well, Mickey Hart. I have started reading Paul Merson's book. I'm in the 9th chapter. I'm hoping to have it read by Saturday. So by the time Saturday comes, it's going to take me 5 days to come round before I start reading Mickey Hart's book. I am a gambler. I do gamble, but not to your extent. I have done crazy things. I don't gamble heavy, like boogies a day, £20 a horse, cruising to the 3rd last, 64 favourite horse, throws them off. Stupid things. Unfortunate with football, I would be lucky enough with football. I would do well with football, but gambling is just a curse. Can I ask you, you'll make me feel a lot better, have you stole money to gamble?
Well, when I remember whenever I said, listen, you know, I said to my family, listen, I have a gambling issue, and I suppose in the back of your head you're going, I wonder am I bad? I wonder, you know, on the scale, where am I at? I remember my sister getting a little book from Gamblers Anonymous. Well, on the back of it, there's 20 questions. When I say I was poor at school, I was very poor at school, but I got 20 out of 20 in this test, and that was tick. Have you ever stolen to feed your gambling? Yes. Have you ever hurt anybody to feed your gambling? Yes. Have you ever laid to feed your gambling? Yes. I ticked all of those boxes. Now, whenever I first went into treatment and somebody said to me, have you stolen? I'm thinking, who's stolen? Now, this is a question that should have took me, like, you know, all of about 5 minutes. And then I started to think about it, and I started to think, how will people view me if they know I've stolen to feed my habit? And then I realised, honesty. Without honesty, as a compulsive gambler, I had no chance of recovery. Have I stolen to feed my gambling? Yeah, on a continuous basis. I would have done anything to feed my addiction. Like, anybody who doesn't understand gambling as an addiction, and see people on TV who are strung out in heroin, and to do anything to get the next hit, sell a TV off the wall, or I don't know, whatever. That's exactly what I was. I was an addict who had to feed his habit.
Can I ask you, are you still gambling?
No.
When have you had your last bet?
The 12th of October 2005 was the last time I had a bet. And that's an easy date for me to remember because on the 13th of October, which is the following day, I turned 30. And the thing about gambling was that I realised that it had to be complete cessation for me. It had to be. I had to go cold turkey. It had to be no more. Like I wouldn't buy a lotto ticket, a scratch card. I never did this when I was gambling. Lotto ticket, scratch card, draw ticket. Anybody plays golf here, if you go to there's like a Vegas hole, I can't put a fiver on whether I'm going to land the ball in the thing. I can't do any of that. I can't play my mate for 50p in a game pool. I can't do that. And the reason why I can't do that was because 50p each way led me to where I was in the end. And it'll lead me there again. And I can't go there again. Because the first time round it cost me money. And yes, it cost me relationships and friendships and a lot of collateral damage and jobs and all those things. But I'm playing with different stuff now. Like I have a wife, I have 3 kids. You know what I mean? I'm after spending 16 years building up a relationship with the people around me that I absolutely destroyed at the time. And I'm not jeopardizing that ever again.
Well, can I ask you one other thing here?
This better not be about Mickey Hart's book.
Yeah.
Is gambling a mugs game? Yes or no? Yes or no?
For me,
no grey areas here. It's yes or no.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well done.
Cheers.
Folks, I know this is powerful stuff, to be honest, and I don't want to cut it short or nothing like that, but I'm just conscious of time. The school itself is closing down for 9, and we have food out the back as well, which we want everybody to take some with them. And also the guys are about for about 15-20 minutes as well. So if you have any questions, I'm sure they're happy to take questions as well. So I'm happy to take one more room, and if anybody else.
One more, if anybody.
I can't see them lights.
Nobody
Anybody else? Yeah.
Why is there a reluctance by governments or political parties to ban advertising of gambling on TV, sponsorship programs?
And he's only take that up.
You see during football matches this, constant advertisement to have bets.
Yeah, no. Why? It's obviously financially advantageous for governments to continue with that, because it can't. I've been asked this question on numerous occasions. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you look at the gambling legislation in the north, you look at the gambling legislation in the south. One's from the 40s and one's from the 50s. If you can imagine how gambling has changed in that time. There's been a gambling bill in the south from 2013 that has been signed off by the gaming industry. So what will be holding that back 8 years later? I mean, we don't, like, as far as legislation concerned, gambling companies across the island, they look after themselves, basically. So they decide what's right and what's wrong. So as far as gambling advertising, obviously it seems to be a lot more crucial to the economy than lives are. So, I mean, that's the only way I can answer the question, because as far as legislation and regulation, we effectively don't have any north or south.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, can I just again thank Sean, Oisin and Connor for being so open tonight. I think in terms of the framing of the meeting or the conversation, it was about honesty. And I always feel running alongside honesty is integrity. And there's absolutely no doubt that you have brought integrity to this discussion tonight. And I want to thank you personally, and indeed thank you on behalf of everybody here. Thank you very much for coming and being so honest.
Yeah.